Oh, that's, you know how that goes with brother-in-laws. Call to order. This is a meeting of Pinetop-Lakeside Planning and Zoning Commission. Could you, let me take a look down here. We have a quorum. All the commissioners are present except for Commissioner Williams. Could everyone please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. This is a business meeting of the Planning and Zoning Commission. The town values and welcomes public input. Please address the commission as a whole and not individual commission members. Do not address staff or members of the audience. Commission action on items brought up and called to the public is limited by the open meeting law. The commission may direct staff to study the matter and reschedule for further consideration at a later date. Items on the agenda will not be heard or discussed and called to the public. Individuals are limited to 3 minutes. I believe we have one individual. Is it correct, Mr. Ingalls? You would like to speak for call the public? If you could come to the podium and thank you.
Ingalls, Penrod Road, Pinetop. I wanted to address the commission tonight and say how helpful it is having such good minutes, past meetings, that we can see what's going on in our community. And when issues pass from you guys to the council and all too, it's very helpful. Thank you. And as I look ahead in our community, and I'm thinking that we're going to get on track pretty soon to do general plan revision. I consulted via phone with Patty King, the executive director of the Arizona Planning Association, and was very pleased to find out that Jeremiah was a member. And it's not that expensive for the commission to also have a membership in the Arizona Planning Association. They have a lot of resources that I think would benefit staff, council, P&Z commission, and our citizens. And as maybe a future agenda item, if you as a commission are willing, I'd love to have a chance to maybe discuss either the opportunity of the membership, and staff could probably cover the cost of what that might be, and also say that there are citizens that would look forward to being interactive early on as the general plan revision moves ahead. And due to cost considerations, it would seem, in my eyes at least, that perhaps to get going on this sooner than later, trying to do an election where the general plan could have been discussed, the compromises and details worked out, and it could be part of the general election in 2024. We could be a little ahead of schedule instead of trying to catch up in 2025. With that said, I'll watch for an agenda item. I'd be glad to participate either with staff or individually with any commissioners and share information. With that, I'll take a seat, and thank you for letting me bring that topic up.
Thank you.
Thanks, Mr. Ingalls. All right. C, minutes. Consider approval of the minutes of the regular meeting of the Planning and Zoning held on March 9th, 2023. Did the commissioners have an opportunity to review those minutes?
Yes.
Yes.
Do we have any questions, revisions, concerns? Okay. Do I have a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve of the minutes of the regular meeting of the Planning and Zoning Commission held on March 9th, 2023.
Second.
I have a second from Vice Chair Turner. All those that agree with that and approve the minutes, say aye.
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 It's unanimous. D, new business. Public comment will be taken at the beginning of each agenda item after the subject has been announced by the chairman and explained by staff. Any citizen who wishes may speak one time for 5 minutes on each agenda item before or after commission discussion. Questions from the commission members, however, may be directed to staff members, to staff or a member of the public through the chairman at any time. D1, review and discuss site plan SPR 23-263 for the purpose, or for the proposed new administration building for Navajo Electric, that's Navopache Electric Cooperative at 2470 Porter Mountain Road, Lakeside, Arizona, 85929, APN 212-65001. I'm going to hand it over to Mr. Lloyd for staff recommendations regarding this.
Yeah, so this is the, Navopache has been in the community since 1948, and they were at 1878 West White Mountain Boulevard for most of that time. They moved to Porter Mountain at the aforementioned site, 2470 North Porter Mountain Road, 17.2 acres. Around 2010, the building was built for phase 1. In that initial site plan review, it was spec'd out that they install a 8-foot high chain link fence behind the warehouse, and also the perimeter fencing would be 8 foot high with barbed wire on top. That was approved, and they had I got an approved landscaping plan that showed most of the landscaping would be taken care of in phase 2. Now, obviously that was 13 years ago, so their initial plans of what their administration building looked like don't necessarily reflect what was on the initial plan, but that's because due to the time frame and the change in administration, I'm guessing that they came up with a new and better building for their campus there. And so tonight we have before us phase 2 of that project, Navopache's administration building, and there'll also be some parking bays and storage. Is that correct? Okay, and then, so I'm going to read through my staff report here. The request is for a site plan design review approval for a 30,000 square feet administration building and 2 parking structures and storage areas totaling 28,978 square feet. The location, as previously discussed, is APN 212-65001 on 2470 Porter Mountain Road. The zoning is C2, heavy commercial. The project site is approximately 17.19 acres. The maximum lot coverage will be less than 50% at roughly 16%. The building will be less than 35 feet at 28 foot 3 inches. And the setbacks and development standards are met. The Timber Mesa Fire Marshal emailed me earlier today, and he said that looking at the site plan, he sees very little with the proposed layout. There will likely need to be 2 fire hydrants added and an electronic gate access. We understand the building is to be sprinklered, so we can work on hydrant locations that will help and base them upon the existing water lines on site as much as possible. And that was the comments from Timber Mesa. Let's see, jump back here. Drainage, so they initially submitted a drainage report 2 years ago, and they requested to reduce the size of their detention basin to allow for more area for storage, I'm guessing, on site. And so they, Painted Sky, submitted a drainage report and basically stated that I had them look at a few different factors, and I wanted them to show me that the site draining from this campus, which is Billy Creek, before the peak concentration flow from the entire watershed of Billy Creek will come down there, so it'd already be through the system before the peak hits. And so they showed that, and they showed that through the detention waiver. They showed that again, illustrating how it also applies even though the site coverage would be increased with the hardscaping and the buildings, that it was still effective, and that the detention waiver was still warranted. The parking, they have 103 spaces required for on-site parking based on the requirements found in 17.104.070C.9, and 110 spaces are provided, including 3 proposed ADA compliant spaces. Requirements to have at least 5 ADA accessible are provided by 6 existing ADA parking spots at the existing employee parking southwest of the proposed 30,700 square foot administration building. Hence, the requirements of 17.104.070K are met. Due to the excess parking provided, 7 additional trees are required in a landscaping plan per 17.92050.A5.c, and where it states that for each parking space over the threshold, they have to add 1 tree. So they're 7 over, and they needed, so the requirement's bumped by 7 trees. For traffic analysis, they did not provide a traffic impact analysis. It looks like they had provided one in phase 1 that showed that they wouldn't have a significant impact. They do have 2 entrances. The primary entrance is located off Commerce Drive, and then a secondary emergency entrance is accessible from Porter Mountain Road. And from what I saw in the plans, the buildings, the actual elevations and the materials that they're utilizing are within the town code. They are in a C2 zone. They can have metal buildings, except they need to have a 3-foot break at the bottom with an alternative material such as split face CMU or a different type of material. And I think that's what they're going with. For the parking area, they have that on the one that's facing Porter Mountain Road. And the one in the back on the west side does not, because it's not required to per code. If you can't see it from the street, it doesn't have to have that 3-foot break. And then the actual administration building is completely covered, it looks like. Is that correct? Okay. From what I can see from my initial review, the key issues that we'll be facing are landscaping issues. And a lot of that is due to the significant amount of site that's hardscaped for Navopache. They have already existing structures. They have a lot of asphalt parking and storage areas for the operation of an electric company. And so I think that's going to be really the key issue. I did speak with their engineer and I went over this, so they're aware of the requirements. I do think that we can look at possibility of reducing the requirements based on 17.92050.5D, where it shows that if they plant grass, they can have a reduction up to 50%. So I think that's one avenue to consider. For them to be able to meet the requirements. There was an error in the staff report. I think it erroneously said it was a lot of shrubs, but it wasn't 11,124. It was 1,124. So if they were able to, say, pick up some grass, and the suggestion would be to maybe look at your detention basin. 2,001 square feet is all you need to be able to cut that back to half of what is shown in the staff report and on the plans. So I think that is a good option to look at because clearly that was, I think, the biggest obstacle they're facing, just where to put all the trees that we're requiring. They're showing trees on Porter Mountain Road, the street tree requirement, and on Commerce Drive, but those don't count for their overall tree requirement. So that's separate from the tree requirement on site, and the site trees are based off of the hardscaping, which there's a lot of. They can pick up some of those requirements by installing tree buffering on the south end of the property, in between the commercial and the Arlo residentially zoned area. They're out in that area. There's a barn. I think there's no existing subdivision. It's just a barn and like a pond or something. But it's not to say that in the future someday that couldn't be developed. But I think we would address other requirements at that time. We would ask the developer to, if there was a proposed development, to come in and screen at that time. Because currently there's really nothing there, and that wasn't part of the existing approved site plan for phase 1. But I think that if we can work through the landscaping requirements by capturing some of that with the reduction for grass, then I think that's a path forward. The exterior components meet all requirements of C2 zone. An approved 8-foot chain link fence with barbed wire was part of as mentioned, it was part of the phase 1 site plan review in 2010 and was approved under SPR 09244. The exterior lighting was, there's this photometric site plan that indicates that most of the light will remain on site. As you get towards the outer limits of the site, it diminishes. But all lighting shall be shielded from the adjacent residential neighborhood, and exterior lighting will conform with 17.104.100. And then my staff recommendations are that screening trees be provided per 1792.060.5.b.5, excuse me, 1 tree for every 15 feet on the southern edge. That's what the code requires for screening between residential and commercial, and that will actually help you pick up some of those tree requirements for site anyway. And because I think the last version of the landscaping plan showed that about 3/4 of the way down. And I realize you have some drainage and stuff in that area, but you need to be able to pick up your tree requirements. And I think that you also have to, you will also have to meet the screening requirements along that southern boundary. As we discussed, the number of street trees on Commerce Drive shall be 20 if they're red oaks. I think they indicated red oaks, and the spacing for that is 30 feet. The code has a caveat for increasing the spacing of the trees if the species calls for it. So they had spec'd, if they spec'd 20 red oaks, I think they spec'd a number of them, but not quite 20. Or an equivalent number of pine and red oaks with a recommended spacing for all species. The landscaping plan is deficient regarding the number of trees. The plan shows 166 trees, including existing and proposed trees. Therefore, the plan is lacking 115 trees. As we discussed, that could be reduced if they have at least 2,001 square foot of grass by 50%. The landscaping plan is deficient regarding the number of shrubs. The plan shows 44 shrubs, and 17.92050.5.b calls for 1 shrub for each 200 square feet of hard surface parking or parking area. Therefore, 1,124 shrubs are required. Again, that could also be reduced by half if they meet the stipulations of the 2,001 square foot of grass. The building will be painted in earth tone color as submitted, and the conditions of Timber Mesa will be met. Any other conditions that the council may, or the commission may deem necessary.
Thank you, Jeremiah. I think the way I'm going to run it, Mr. Ingles, if you would like to come speak on it, and then I'll Navopache come up.
Anything that I might want to say might be after Navopache makes their presentation.
So you're asking respectfully to talk after them?
Yeah, I'd like to be as much educated as I can
I appreciate
what I've seen in the 8x11 paper regarding the plan.
Well, thank you for denoting the size of the paper. Navopache, which gentleman would like to speak? Did you guys want to present anything?
Sure, I'll take the lead. Chairman and board members, thanks for the opportunity to speak. Jeremiah, thank you for the presentation. Great job presenting the project. My name is John McGee. I'm with Cole Design Group. We are the civil and landscape architecture consultant. We have a pretty full team here, but some quick introductions. Craig Wall is also on. He's with the design build contractor, Cooperative Building Solutions. Tara is with M&H Architects. Darth is with Navopache. He's on video, and I believe Brian and Josh are also there in person, although I can't see you guys. Again, thank you. Like Jeremiah mentioned, we would like to discuss the landscape requirements a little further. Jeremiah and I have gone back and forth, and I think we're all in agreement that the buffer requirements for Commerce, Porter Mountain Road, we understand. We are this second phase of this project is adding this administrative building to the northeast corner of the site. When the first phase was built, this was always contemplated, but it wasn't built with that first phase. What we would like to discuss further is specifically the large requirement for the 1,200 roughly shrubs required. We think that number is sort of based on the entire site, the full 17 acres and the full amount of pavement that's there. However, along with that first phase of the project in 2010, there was an approved landscape plan that was built per plan that met all the requirements at the time. What we would ask is that for this next phase, and it's roughly about 4 acres that we're improving here, that our landscape requirements be applied to only the new limit of disturbance. Again, we understand the buffer requirements. That building at the northeast corner is visible from both those public roads, so I don't think we have any disagreements along the boundary or the buffer. But we would like to just kind of dig into the on-site shrubs and tree requirements. We will probably move forward with the grass reduction, adding 2,000 square feet of turf to get to 50% reduction within means, and I don't think that's an issue. One of the reasons why we want to kind of stress the importance of limiting the landscape is that every square foot of the site is used by the co-op. It's very important that we try to maintain as much area for maintenance and lay down areas as possible. So that's kind of our reasoning to keep operations more efficient, and so that's sort of our position. And we are open to any other discussions. We're all here. All disciplines are able to answer any questions. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Mr. Ingalls?
Thank you, Commission. This site is so visible from Porter Mountain Road. Our public school that added on down there where the roundabout is, it's hard to drive by without noticing the commercial industrial look of the needs that Navopache has there. But there are literally no trees, no landscaping, no buffering down that whole stretch of Porter Mountain Road. And even as I just heard, try to focus on the new 4 acres. Well, I can't help but look over there and say, how do we end up with chain link fencing and no buffering and a commercial lot? When I also realize if I did this right, there are literally 5 acres on this site of non-pervious surface between the parking area and the buildings. And that's approximate 5 acres, I guess, altogether. And I have a little concern about the runoff from the buildings, the parking area. I'm sure environmentally that Navopache uses the best practices and all, but in the proximity of Billy Creek, and I don't know if there was any input from the Forest Service regarding the runoff going across that 500 feet and then entering the creek as it flows down to Shoalo Lake and beyond. But sometimes in other communities, they may require swales in the detention area that might trap some of the sediment or other things that would leave parking areas and all, so that they don't get into our natural streams. Again, on the limited papers that I had size-wise, trying to read the keynotes in there, I'm not really that sure, and I thought maybe some of that might be answered either through the voice that I'm hearing tonight or representatives that are here from the co-op. Other things that I would be looking for as a citizen, LED lighting has brought about a lot of changes in both vehicles and the residential and commercial areas in our community as well as others. And I know a lot of the retrofitting tends to drop the LEDs down in the lighting structure so they're not shielded as well. Trying to be a night sky community, I'm hoping that our co-op, we have 3 electrical services, which we pay monthly and have been a member of the co-op since '78. So I'm looking to them maybe to be an example of good lighting, and we can use that as examples with future development to minimize off-site glare, So I think that's within the realm. I can look at the information that's provided, but lumens and range and all that doesn't really mean a whole lot to me on a sheet of paper. It's when I drive down the road and the highway through town is shiny because of rain or snow or ice, And the glaring sometimes, at my age at least, is somewhat of a problem. So I'm hoping to see the best of what they can do there. I don't know if the town forester, I'm sorry, I don't think we have a town forester, but I don't know if there was a forester consulted at all with the tree plans as this moves ahead. But again, the feeling of importance of buffering the industrial look from the road, Porter Mountain Road specifically, more so than Commerce, would be important to me. The other thing is too, I don't know on the plans that there is any landscaping within the parking area, any attempt to save trees in that area. And being a Tree City USA, and proudly having it on signs in the town, I guess knowing that that heavily forested corner is gonna be radically altered, I guess I would look as the co-op is trying to be responsible as they can with how that site is used to be a good example of stewards of our property as it develops in the community. So I guess I look to you, and I really appreciate the thoroughness with which our community development director went through and evaluated. And as commissioners, I'm hoping some of the discussion to come up with a reasonable plan for how this might get approved with the concerns of the citizens in the town. Thank you.
Mr. Engel, can I ask him a question? How far do you live from the proposed site?
I reside on Pinetop. I have residences that I own and haven't moved into yet. Sholo Lake on the inlet side.
Okay, so you think that their new building would be visible from your houses?
No, it would not.
Okay, and how far do we sit from the proposed building to Penrod Road? What is the distance from there? Does anyone have any idea what the distance would be from there? Because you're saying about the light shining there. I don't think visually you're gonna see it. From Penrod Road to where their proposed building is, you're not gonna be able to see that lighting.
I would agree with you in total. I see red lights on Porter Mountain, and that's due to safety for the towers. That are
Yeah, and their study that they did, I see the lighting that they're using. It's the same lighting that they're gonna use for the Dollar Tree, if I'm not mistaken. So everything's pretty well engineered. Do you know what I mean? But I wanted to know how close you live to the proposed project. How it's gonna interfere with you, is
I'm
what I
on
was
the
trying to
other
get.
end of Penrod, in the Pinetop
Okay,
end, not
okay.
out the Penrod Road.
All right.
And again, just wanting to be a good steward as the project moves forward.
Okay.
And an example.
Thank you.
I'm going to open this up for discussion among the board members, or chairmen, commissioners. Thank you for your input. I appreciate that. Anybody have
I
any
have
comments?
a question on
Commissioner
the
Fresno?
spokesperson from Navopache was talking about the shrubs, the count that we're asking for represented 17 acres, and yet they're only doing 4 acres, is what he said.
Roughly, yeah.
So less than a quarter.
Right, about a quarter.
And so what, like, are we pre-planning their shrub and tree count for phase 3 then?
There is no phase 3 as far as I know. So, and I don't necessarily disagree that may be a fair ask, that we just look at the 4 acres that they're actually building on.
I have some input on this as well. And this actually, parcel brought this up to light. So we have a general rule on trees, and it made me think about this, that not all of Pinetop, which is the city, has any trees. Like if we go down Penrod and it's the high plateau, high desert area without trees. So on one hand, the tree requirement's kind of ridiculous. If you bought a piece of land that has 0 trees on it, and that's the way it naturally is. You didn't take any trees down. It has no trees. And then we're essentially requiring them to terraform the property by adding in all these trees and shrubs. So, I'm kind of the same boat Commissioner Fresno is, like, but we should just probably look at the 4 acres and be realistic and not ask them to terraform the whole parcel. because they're not cutting down, there's just not trees there to begin with. It's kind of my position on the tree situation.
You're gonna be
Isn't it
saving a
based-
lot of water also.
Well, yeah, I didn't even look at that, so we're gonna be saving precious resources by
Yes,
not putting trees where trees haven't been.
yes.
Isn't it based on the hard surface, not acreage number?
It is based
Yeah.
on hardscape, and I think one of the issues they're facing is where they're proposing the building, they have a bunch of existing trees growing on the site now, so there's a tree grove right there that would basically go away. And so the ask is to put replace some of those trees where they're removing them for the structure. And I don't necessarily disagree that 4 acres is a fair ask if that's all that they're developing. Plus, given they had an approved site plan and landscaping plan for the prior phase, I don't necessarily think that I don't disagree that that's a fair ask.
Yeah, I mean, I think we have to look at this has already come through once before. This is phase 2. They invested a lot of money in our community to put the original structure, knowing later on they were gonna go do something else. And it would be rough for us to say, well, guess what? You spent all this money, the rules have changed now, you can't do that, even though we already approved the other one. Yeah, I don't know if the sense, right?
Can we add that into the motion? The 4 acres?
Yeah, that the site plan review be based off of the hardscape and acreage that is actually being developed in this
Yes,
phase.
yes.
Yes.
The
Do we have
hardscape
to
and
make a
acreage.
motion on that?
Well, we can do it when an individual, when we're done discussing, I'll close discussion and then someone can
And
make a
do
motion.
we have a quick calculation on what that,
I can run it off the numbers that I gave here. So basically, a quarter of 1,124 shrubs, what that would look like, 281 shrubs. So that's a significant delta right there. And then for the trees, how many trees did we said that they're showing 166 and it was lacking 115. So let me get that real quick. So the total trees would have been 281, and if we multiply that by a quarter, it would be 70, so they'd already be there on the trees.
And I think they mentioned putting in some artificial turf. Am I correct?
I haven't heard.
Did I hear one of the gentlemen say that?
Grass,
Oh, grass.
Yeah, like-
Regular grass.
yeah.
I mentioned to them that they could get a reduction in the amount of trees, recognizing that the site is for 17 acres, but there is a code caveat for reduction of trees if they have some grass.
Thanks.
I mean, would we rather have one or the other? I'm just throwing it out there. I mean, the nice thing with the trees, to address maybe some of the citizens' concern is with trees, we can maybe have more of those trees on the road, on Porter Road, Porter Mountain Road side. But, it's gonna take less water for a tree. I don't
Well, they're
know. Does it take less
they're-
water for a tree than grass, or
No, grass would take more.
Yeah,
So-
they're investing in the
yeah.
town. I mean, give them the option. Either they could do so many trees or so many
Yeah, I think that's a fair
shrubs
ask.
and grass.
I think it's a fair ask, but what I would like to see is the trees along Porter Mountain. I think that's crucial that we get those.
Yeah, yeah. I don't think that would be a far cry if we can make it that you only have to comply with the 4 acres and to try to focus on putting those trees in areas that would, shield the public more and it give you guys some more privacy too at the
So
same time.
basically what that would look like, I think, is the street tree requirement would remain, but the reduction could be of the quarter or 4 acres could be based off of the site trees, which would greatly reduce the number of site trees. And then it'd still be compliant with the street trees.
Are the gentlemen still on the phones? Can we get a little input from them, maybe? What they think of our...
Yeah, sure.
Can we get a little...
Yeah, I will.
Go ahead.
I can jump in. Yep. This is John McGee again with Cole, Chairman and Commission members. I think we're following along with what you're asking, and I think it's exactly what we were asking for. Just to kind of reiterate and to address the neighbor's concern. So there's 2 different requirements. There's the street tree requirement, which I've talked to Jeremiah, and we understand that requirement, and I don't think we're asking for anything non-ordinance related. We will meet the ordinance for street trees. The reduction is the site trees, which is based on the amount of pavement and hardscape. What we were asking is that those requirements only be included for anything new that we're providing. So the new parking lot, we would calculate our street trees based on, or not street trees, the site trees and shrubs based on the new pavement, which I believe that's exactly what it seems like everyone's in agreement with. I threw out 4 acres. It's roughly 4 acres, and what I can do is provide the exact calculations to Jeremiah for approval prior to coming in with our building submittal.
So do you
Does
think,
that help clarify?
do you think you want to put
sorry.
more trees in and delete that grass area out because of the amount of water you'll be using for the grass?
I think, and probably we would have to work through this a little bit with ownership, but right now I would say we would probably likely add the 2,000 square feet of turf, probably around the building, especially from an aesthetic standpoint, to gain the 50% reduction on street trees. Site trees, not street trees.
Now, could you get the 50% reduction with artificial turf?
I don't know the answer to that question. I don't think so based on the way the ordinance is written, but Jeremiah might have to clarify that.
So the code just says the applicant can, part of my recommendation was the applicant can consider planting grass to obtain a reduction of requirement of trees for 17.92.050.5.d. That requirement says that the planting of grass shall allow for the following adjustments to the number of required trees and shrubs planted. It doesn't necessarily specify what type of grass, if it's artificial or.
So that's a consideration you might want to consider, is maybe using artificial turf.
Yeah, so more than likely though, that's based off of live grass.
Oh, okay.
But perhaps we should look at
Changing
changing
that.
that.
The future, yeah.
For artificial turf,
I
sure.
would agree that we should maybe visit that on a future agenda item.
And if they're interested, can we entertain that, Jeremiah?
For future item, perhaps, yeah.
For this building?
Artificial or what?
Yes.
No, not I don't think so currently. It has to be, it just says grass, so it said the planting of grass, and so you wouldn't plant artificial turf.
You would install it.
I know that. But no, what I'm saying is, can we look at changing that if they want to do that?
We can.
Because it's going to take a while for construction. It's not going to happen,
We can consider it, but this is, what we're dealing with tonight is what's in the code. It says
On
the
it.
planting of grass.
Okay. Thank you. Any,
I do have something to say, and I'd like to first start off with that I am not against your project at all, but I am for what is fair to everyone who has commercial property in the Pinetop-Lakeside city limits. And this morning, I actually reviewed the code for C2 zoning, and it very clearly states under item number 17.68.070, additional regulations, that any property proposed for development adjoining a rural or residential zoning district or abutting a street or alley shall be screened by a solid masonry, block, stone, or brick wall that's 6 feet in height. Said wall shall be subject to review by the Design Review Board. I did bring this to Jeremiah's attention, and it was obviously 4 o'clock or so this afternoon that it got discussed, and he explained that there was a stipulation in the landscaping code, and it's all those numbers we've referred to 100 times here, that a CMU block wall can be substituted for screening trees placed every 15 feet. Well, I don't see that stipulation in that code number that you quoted me. And our job is to follow the code. And unfortunately, the code is saying that there be a wall, a masonry wall, 6 foot in height, to screen between the rural area and any streets or alleys. That would even mean down Porter Mountain Road. So I'm just, as a commissioner, I'm confused as what is code, because it is black and white under the C2 zoning.
So it says in C2 zoning, it's for, number one, it says in C2 zoning, it's for screening between residential and commercial. And the properties in the county, I looked at the zoning, are commercial residential, but they're being used commercially, so it wouldn't apply on Porter Mountain Road. The only instance where that code would apply is on the southern boundary between the Arlo zoned, where there's a barn and.
Okay.
And. Okay. Yeah, so that section of the code would apply on the southern boundary. But in 17.92.060 walls and screening devices, it says a commercial property that directly abuts residential property must properly shield the commercial lot from the residential lots. This shall be accomplished through the use of trees and/or screening walls. Trees may be spaced a maximum of 15 feet from one another. The trees must run the entire length of the border shared with the residential property. The wall shall be a minimum of 6 foot height and must run the entire length of the border shared with the residential property. So right there, it says that you could do either one.
I don't read that as that saying you could do either one. It says trees and/or screening walls, but then when you go to the C2 zoning, it stipulates in C2 that you are going to put a wall. So I'm putting that out there. Everybody can vote how they want, but that is what our zoning reads. If everyone needs to look at it a little bit closer, I would suggest that we table any motion tonight.
Thank you, Commissioner Stewart. I think an interesting piece, this is not a new build. It's an addition to an existing piece with an already pre-approved site plan that they already approved a fence that was chain link, that was high with barbed wire. To me personally, I don't see the need to have to put a block wall in that would discourage people like from doing any more building on something they already have. I mean, we already approved it, not this board, but our commission, but it was already approved. And what year was it when they?
15 years ago, in 2010.
And so in 2010, this site plan was approved with that fence, with everything. And all we're doing simply is adding a structure to the existing parcel. It's not development of a new parcel whatsoever.
Then why do we have to add trees and everything else? If we are approving a site plan.
For an existing lot, and we could waive those just as easily. Everyone could agree, and we could say, you know what, we're gonna stipulate, and there's no trees.
Okay.
We're empowered to do that as well.
Jeremiah, you read and or, and like wherever you pulled, can't quote the numbers that you quoted, but like wherever you pulled that from, you're confident that it is trees or a block wall.
Right.
Yeah.
In landscaping code.
Any further discussion? Anybody? No? Jeremiah, can I get the exact number of trees that we have? So number 3, so it's not 115, right?
I would actually just say base it off of
4 acres.
base it off of the new hardscaped areas, new buildings in hardscaped areas, the
Okay.
4 acres or whatever it comes back as, and make the motion contingent upon that. That way, my numbers could be off. I'm just estimating, and they'll be able to give me accurate numbers.
And that will
from the
make
CAD
sense.
files.
Okay, I can, I'm gonna make a motion then. I move to approve SPR 23-263 for the Navopache Electric Cooperative Administration Building with the following conditions. That the new hardscape requirements will be based upon approximately 4 acres that they're developing now.
I second.
All those in favor say aye. Aye.
I abstain.
You have to abstain before you talk.
Then no.
Okay, that's better.
Okay, so that passes. E, adjournment. We stand adjourned.